The bride is nothing but a cheap gold digger who trapped my son with her fake tears and calculated moves. Kamini Sharma's voice echoed through the mandap, her silk saree rustling as she stood up in the middle of our saat phere. I was still holding Arian's hand, the sacred fire between us, when my family lawyer, who everyone thought was just another wedding guest, slowly rose from his seat and asked the one question that would destroy her entire world. Mrs. Sharma, before I read Priya's inheritance documents, would you like to reconsider that statement? The real question wasn't why I'd hidden my wealth. It was whether she'd survive learning who really needed whose. Money, I'm Priya Mehra, I'm 28, and I just married into a family that spent 6 months treating me like a charity case, never knowing I owned the very mall where they proudly ran their struggling jewelry store. The Shadi Ka Muhurat was supposed to be at 11:47 p.m. The pandit had been very specific about the timing, consulting his charts and calendars with the seriousness of a heart surgeon. It was now 11:43 p.m., and we were on the 5th phere when Kamini decided to detonate her carefully planned bomb. "Stop!" she commanded, her voice cutting through the Sanskrit mantras like a blade. "I cannot let this happen. Not to my only son," the pandit's chanting faltered. 200 guests turned in their seats, phones already coming out to capture whatever drama was about to unfold. Arian's hand tightened around mine, his face a mixture of shock and rage. "Mummy, what are you doing?" he hissed, but Kamini was already in full performance mode. She walked around the sacred fire, her heavy gold necklaces catching the light, pointing at me with the theatrical flair of a Bollywood villain. "This girl," she announced, "is after our money." She saw my successful son, our family business, our status in society, and she plotted. Oh, how cleverly she plotted! I stood there, my red lehenga suddenly feeling like armor, the weight of my mother's diamond necklace, the only piece of jewelry I wore from my side, pressing against my throat. The irony was so thick I could almost taste it. "Auntie G," I started, my voice steady despite the trembling in my chest. "Please, this is not the time." "Not the time?" she shrieked. "When is the time? After you've transferred all our assets to your name? After you've convinced my foolish son to abandon his family? I've seen girls like you. Auto rickshaw father, chawl background, suddenly working in big companies, targeting rich families." The lies rolled off her tongue so easily. Yes, my father had driven an auto rickshaw 25 years ago, before he built one of Delhi's largest transport companies. Yes, we'd lived in a chawl when I was 3 before Papa's business took off. Yes, I worked in a big company because I owned it. "Mummy, stop this," Arian pleaded, but she was on a roll now, playing to her audience. "I have proof," Kamini declared, pulling out her phone. "Look at these pictures. This girl at 5-star hotels. Designer clothes. How does a simple IT employee afford all this? She's clearly spending my son's money already." The photos were from my own hotel. The clothes were gifts from fashion houses seeking retail space in my properties. But the guests didn't know that. They whispered, judged, exactly as she intended. That's when Raghav Mehta stood up. To everyone at the wedding, he was just another guest in an expensive suit, someone from the bride's side who'd been quietly enjoying the festivities. They didn't know he was senior partner at Mehta & Associates. Yes, same surname. Different family, and had been managing my family's legal affairs since before I was born. Mrs. Sharma, his voice was calm, professional, cutting through the chaos like a sharp knife through soft butter. "I believe there's been a misunderstanding." Kamini spun around, her eyes narrowing. "And you are?" "Someone who has a question," Raghav said, pulling out a leather folder from his jacket. "Should I read the inheritance now?" The words hung in the air like suspended daggers. Kamini's face went pale beneath her heavy makeup. "What inheritance?" she whispered. Raghav smiled, the kind of smile sharks might give before feeding. "Miss Priya Mehra's inheritance. Or should I say, Mrs. Priya Sharma's inheritance, though the marriage isn't complete yet." He looked at his watch. "We have 3 minutes before the Muhurat passes. Shall we continue the ceremony, or would you prefer I explain why your daughter-in-law chose to hide assets worth approximately—" He paused, flipping through papers for effect. 437 crores? The silence that followed was absolute. You could have heard a pin drop, except everyone seemed to have forgotten how to breathe. Arian turned to me, his eyes wide. "Priya?" But I was watching his mother, watching the exact moment her world tilted off its axis. Her legs gave out, and she would have hit the ground if 2 guests hadn't caught her. "You're lying," she gasped. This is some trick. She paid you to— Mrs. Sharma, Raghav's voice turned cold. I don't appreciate being accused of fraud. Would you like me to call Mr. Dheeraj Mehra, founder and chairman of Mehra Transport Corporation? Or perhaps Mrs. Sunita Mehra, who sadly passed away 3 years ago, leaving her entire estate to her only daughter? Or should I simply show you the property papers for Celestial Mall, where I believe your jewelry store operates on a significantly discounted lease for the past 10 years? I closed my eyes. I hadn't wanted it to come out like this. Priya? Aryan's voice was soft, confused, hurt. Is this true? I opened my eyes and looked at the man I loved. The man who'd fallen for me when I was debugging code at his office, who'd brought me chai during late nights, who'd stood up to his mother 100 times in the past 6 months, but never quite enough. Every word, I said quietly. Except the part where I married you for money. That was the only lie told here tonight, but why? He looked genuinely lost. Why hide this? Because, I said, my voice stronger now, addressing not just him but the entire crowd. I wanted to be loved for who I am, not what I have. I wanted a family that would accept Priya, not Priya's bank balance. I looked at Kamini, who was being fanned by relatives. I wanted a mother-in-law who might actually see me as a daughter, not a threat or an opportunity. The pandit cleared his throat. The Muhurat, will you marry me? I asked Aryan, ignoring everyone else. Not my money, not my properties, not my father's company, just me. The girl who burns chai and codes until 3 a.m. and laughs at your terrible jokes. Will you marry her? Aryan looked at his mother, then at me, then at the sacred fire between us. I need to know everything, he said. No more secrets. No more secrets, I agreed. Then let's finish this, he said, taking my hand again. Panditji, please continue. No. Kamini had recovered enough to shriek. I forbid this. She lied to us. She protected herself, a new voice interrupted. My father walked in, still in his traveling clothes, straight from the airport. I hadn't expected him. He was supposed to be in London for treatment. But there he stood, my papa, the man who'd driven 16-hour shifts to build an empire. Mr. Mehra, Kamini stammered, recognizing him now. We didn't know. Exactly, Papa said simply. You didn't know. You saw my daughter and decided she wasn't good enough for your family. You made her cry every week with your taunts about money. You told your relatives she was a gold digger at every function. You tried to make her sign a prenup that would leave her with nothing if the marriage failed. And now you're upset because she's not the poor girl you wanted to control? She should have told us. Kamini protested. Why? I finally found my voice. So you could suddenly love me? So you could parade me around as your rich daughter-in-law instead of hiding me in corners at parties? So you could replace your contempt with greed? I pulled out my phone, scrolling to the saved messages. Should I read these, Mummy G? The texts where you told Aryan to keep me in line? The ones where you discussed with your sister how to make sure I don't take advantage of your family? The voice notes where you called me that girl from nowhere and suggested Aryan should keep his assets separate? Each word hit her like a physical blow. The guests were recording everything now, the wedding having turned into a viral video in the making. I gave you 6 months, I continued. 6 months to see me as a person. 6 months where I wore simple clothes, took your insults, did your housework during every visit, listened to your constant reminders about how lucky I was to marry up. And not once did you show me genuine kindness. That's not true, she whispered. But even she didn't believe it. The jewelry store you're so proud of? I said, my voice steady now. The one you said I could never understand because I'm not business-minded? It exists because my mother gave you that lease at 70% below market rate when you were struggling 15 years ago. She never told you who she was. She just saw a family trying to make it and decided to help. That's the kind of person she was. That's the kind of person I tried to be. Aryan's hand found mine again. You knew my family was struggling? The books are public record if you know where to look, I said. 3 years of losses. Your father's medical bills. The loans you took to keep up appearances. I knew everything. And I still chose you. Because I fell in love with the man who teaches coding to underprivileged kids on weekends. The man who refused his mother's choice of brides because they only talked about money. The man who, ironically, told me he was tired of girls who saw him as an ATM. The Muhurat is passing. the pandit warned urgently. Wait, Kamini said, struggling to her feet. You knew we were in debt? You knew we were failing? I knew you were human, I said simply. I thought that would be enough to see me as human, too. She looked at me then, really looked at me for the first time. The simple girl she'd tormented. The daughter-in-law she'd tried to break. The woman who could buy and sell her family 100 times over but chose to scrub her kitchen floors instead. She started, then stopped. For once, the great Kamini Sharma had no words. The Mahurat, the pandit practically shouted. Priya, Aryan said urgently. Marry me. Not because of your money or despite it. Marry me because I love the woman who hid all this just to find real love. Marry me because I'm an idiot who let his mother hurt you, but I swear I'll spend my life making it right. Marry me because, yes, I said, pulling him back toward the fire. Yes, but only if you promise one thing. Anything. We live in my apartment, not your family home, and your mother visits only when invited. He glanced at Kamini, who looked like she'd aged 10 years in 10 minutes. Done. The last 2 pheres were completed in record time. The pandit, looking immensely relieved, pronounced us married just as the clock struck midnight. The Mahurat had passed, but we'd made it. As the guests erupted in confused applause, Raghav approached Kamini with a document. Mrs. Sharma, this is a gift deed. Priya instructed me to transfer the mall ownership to you if, and only if, you made it through the wedding without insulting her. Since you failed that condition, the alternative stands. Your lease will continue at the current rate. But any future expansions will be at market price. That's, Kamini calculated quickly. That would bankrupt us. Yes, I said, now wearing the sindoor and Mangal Sutra that marked me as a married woman. It would, unless you learn to run a business based on merit, not manipulation. I'm willing to invest in your expansion, but I want 51% partnership and complete transparency. You'll report to my CFO, follow ethical practices, and treat your employees, all of them, with respect. You want to control us, she said bitterly. No, I corrected. I want to teach you what my mother taught me. That money is just a tool. It's what you do with it, and how you treat people who have less of it, that defines you. Papa stepped forward, placing a hand on my shoulder. My wife started with nothing. Built everything. But she never forgot where she came from. Never looked down on anyone. That's why she helped you, Mrs. Sharma, even when you didn't know it. That's the legacy Priya carries. I don't want your pity, Kamini said, but her voice lacked its earlier venom. It's not pity, I said. It's a business proposal. Take it or leave it. But know this, Aryan is my husband now. We'll build our own life with or without your blessing. The question is whether you want to be part of it as family or just relatives we see on Diwali. The wedding that had turned into a circus slowly transformed into something else. Relatives whispered, but now with awe rather than judgment. The same people who'd smirked at the gold digger now looked at me with newfound respect, or fear. I wasn't sure which was worse. Aryan pulled me aside as the photographers rushed to capture the dramatic moment. 400 crores? 37, I corrected. Raghav likes to round up, and most of it is in properties and the business. I live on my salary. The IT job is real? Everything about me is real, I said. Except the part where I pretended your mother's words didn't hurt. He cupped my face in his hands. I'm sorry. You stood up for me, I interrupted. Maybe not enough, maybe not perfectly, but you tried. That's more than most would do. And now you know why I needed to be sure you loved me, not my bank balance. I do, he said. I love the girl who debugs code and burns chai. But I have to ask, why did you go through with it? Why marry me after everything my mother did? I smiled, the weight of secrets finally lifting. Because love isn't about finding someone who's perfect. It's about finding someone who's worth the imperfection. Your mother might have been cruel, but you never were. You're worth fighting for. Even if it means fighting your mother. She'll never be easy, he warned. Neither am I replied. Ask anyone who's tried to negotiate with me. As we returned to complete the remaining ceremonies, Kamini approached slowly. I need time to process this. Take all the time you need, I said. The business offer stands. And Mummy G, one more thing. She looked at me warily. The next time you want to call someone a gold digger, remember this moment. Remember how it felt to realize you were the one who needed help. And maybe, just maybe, choose kindness instead. The rest of the wedding passed in a blur. Guests congratulated us with varying degrees of sincerity. Some relatives suddenly remembered how they'd always known I was special. Others kept their distance, unsure how to process the reversal. But the moment that mattered came during the vidai, when I prepared to leave my father's house. Papa hugged me tight and whispered, "Your mother would be proud. You gave them a chance to love you for you. That takes more courage than any business deal." As I climbed into the decorated car with Arian, I saw Kamini standing at the doorway. She looked older, smaller, stripped of the armor of superiority she'd worn for so long. Our eyes met, and for the first time, I saw something other than contempt or calculation. Maybe it was regret. Maybe it was respect. Maybe it was just exhaustion. But it was human, and that was a start. "Ready for our new life?" Arian asked, taking my hand. "Ready," I said. "But first, can we stop for chai? I know a great tapri that's open all night." He laughed. "You're worth 400 crores and you want tapri chai." 37, I corrected again. And yes, money can't buy the taste of authentic street chai. Or love, or respect. Or family. I learned that the hard way these past 6 months. As we drove through the Delhi streets, my phone buzzed with messages. The video was already viral. Gold Digger Reversed was trending. But I didn't care about the public verdict. I had won something more valuable than any inheritance. The knowledge that I was loved for exactly who I was. A girl who burned chai, debugged code until dawn, and happened to own a mall or two. And if Kamini Sharma wanted to be part of our lives, she'd have to learn the same lesson my mother taught me all those years ago in our tiny chawl. Wealth is measured not in what you have, but in how you treat those who have less. The greatest inheritance my mother left me wasn't the money. It was the wisdom to hide it until I found people who valued me without it. And now, as Mrs. Priya Aryan Sharma, I was ready to build something even my mother would be proud of. A family based on truth, respect, and really good tapri chai at 2 a.m. Have you ever hidden your true self to test someone's character? Have you ever been judged for what others assumed you lacked, only to reveal what you truly possessed? Drop a comment and subscribe. Because sometimes the greatest power isn't in what you show the world, it's in what you choose to keep hidden until the moment of truth arrives. And remember, the next time someone calls you a gold digger, ask yourself who's really digging for what. The answer might just make someone faint at their own son's wedding.